The moment you stop chasing, everything changes. But not because you played a trick, and not because they suddenly became a better person overnight. It changes because chasing is not love. Chasing is leverage. Chasing tells an avoidant one loud message. You will tolerate distance. You will tolerate ambiguity. You will tolerate being treated like a sometimes. And the second they feel that tolerance, they relax into the role they already know how to play. The one where they keep you close enough to regulate them, but far enough to never be held accountable by closeness. This is why chasing feels like you are doing more and getting less. The more you explain, the more you plead, the more you try to be understood, the more you become a safe object instead of a real consequence. And if you want the avoidant to come back, if you want them to feel the loss, if you want them to stop hovering and start moving, then you need to understand one brutal truth. Avoidants do not change from your logic. They change from your absence of availability to imbalance. They change when access is no longer free. They change when you stop providing comfort without commitment. They change when the nervous system that used you as a soft landing suddenly has to land on itself. Chasing keeps the bond alive without requiring them to grow. It feeds the connection while protecting them from intimacy. And that is why it kills your power. Because you are giving them the benefits of closeness without the cost of showing up. Now, I know what you actually want. You do not want a motivational speech about being fine without them. You want the mechanism. You want to know what makes an avoidant shift. You want to know what makes them miss you in a way that turns into action. You want to know how to stop being the person they can always return to when they are lonely and then ignore when they feel crowded. So let's be precise. There are 3 different forms of chasing, and each one creates a different kind of addiction in the avoidant system. The first is emotional chasing. You send the long message. You pour your heart out. You try to be so clear they cannot misunderstand you. You confess. You clarify. You soften. You apologize for having needs. You wrap your hurt in kindness so you will not scare them. Emotional chasing tells an avoidant, I will do the emotional labor for both of us. It makes them lazy. It makes them avoid speaking because you will speak enough for 2. It also gives them a shield. They can watch you try to fix the connection and then claim they are overwhelmed by intensity. The second is explanatory chasing. You try to educate them into loving you properly. You talk about attachment styles. You talk about trauma. You talk about nervous systems. You talk about patterns. You give them a map to your heart. You give them a manual. You give them the vocabulary to sound aware without behaving differently. Explanatory chasing tells an avoidant, I will keep trying as long as you keep giving me crumbs of understanding. That is not a relationship. That is a classroom where you are the teacher and they are the disappearing student. The third is access chasing. You keep the door open. You respond quickly. You accept last-minute calls. You accept late-night loneliness. You accept vague plans. You accept half presence because half presence is still a hit of them. Access chasing tells an avoidant, you can disappear and return whenever you want, and I will still treat you like you never left. That is why they do not fear losing you. They do not have to. They have trained your availability. So when you stop chasing, what actually changes is not just your behavior. It is the entire reward system of the connection. You remove the reward from inconsistency. You remove the reward from distance. You remove the reward from ambiguity. And the avoidance system hates that. Not because they are evil, because their relationship to closeness is built on control. When they feel in control, they can feel safe enough to want you. When they feel out of control, they shut down, detach, rationalize, disappear. Chasing hands them control. They do not even have to ask for it. They feel it in your urgency. They feel it in your over-explaining. They feel it in your emotional availability, even when they are not emotionally available back. So stopping the chase is the first time the dynamic becomes honest. And honesty is what forces the avoidant to decide. Because when you stop chasing, two things happen at the same time. You stop feeding the loop, and you start creating a vacuum. And the vacuum is what triggers the avoidant mind to start looping on you instead of you looping on them. But only if you stop correctly. Because there is a wrong way to stop chasing that just looks like another chase in disguise. The wrong way is dramatic withdrawal. The wrong way is angry silence designed to punish. The wrong way is posting to get their attention. The wrong way is sending one last message that says you are done, but secretly hoping they will stop you. Avoidants smell that. They can feel when your silence is still attached, and attached silence still gives them the sense that you are waiting. If you want the avoidant back, the stop chasing energy has to be clean. It has to communicate one message without saying it. You do not get access to me without clarity. You do not get intimacy without behavior. You do not get my softness as a resource while you refuse to hold it with responsibility. That is the line. And when you hold that line, you create the only two conditions that reliably shift an avoidant over time: consequence and safety. Consequence means inconsistency costs them something real. Not a speech, not a fight, not a debate. It costs them access. Safety means if they come closer, they will not be humiliated, controlled, or devoured. Many people fail because they only do one. They create consequence with coldness, and the avoidant runs. Or they create safety with endless understanding, and the avoidant relaxes into distance. You need both. And here is how it looks in real life. If they message you after a period of silence with something light, something casual, something that tries to reset the relationship without addressing what happened, your old self would jump. Your old self would be relieved. Your old self would accept the tiny bridge. But that teaches them that silence works. It teaches them that they can leave, return, and still be met with warmth on demand. The clean version is calm, not cruel. Warm, not available. You respond with dignity, but you do not re-enter the old dynamic. You do not fill the emotional space. You do not over-explain. You do not send paragraphs. You do not audition for their attention. You keep it simple. You keep it mature. You keep it self-respecting. Because the moment you stop chasing, you stop trying to convince. And the avoidant can feel that. They feel your energy shift from, "Please choose me," to, "This is what access requires." Now, let's talk about what makes them come back. Avoidants come back for 3 reasons, and only one of them is actually good for you. The first reason is relief. They miss the comfort you gave them. They miss the regulation you provided. They miss the feeling of being wanted without having to be accountable. This is the comeback that looks like late-night messages, sudden nostalgia, sexual pull, sweet words with no plan. This comeback is not change. It is hunger. The second reason is control loss. They sense you are slipping out of their orbit. They sense you are no longer emotionally tethered. They sense they cannot access you the same way. This can trigger pursuit, but it can also trigger power games. They might test you. They might breadcrumb harder. They might suddenly become intense and then vanish again. This comeback can be dramatic, but it is not stable. The third reason is integration. This is the rare one. This is when the avoidant has enough internal capacity to face the cost of their own pattern. They feel the loss, but instead of chasing relief, they move toward repair. They ask to talk. They acknowledge. They show consistency. They make plans. They follow through. They do not punish you for having needs. If you are listening because you want them back, you need to be honest about which comeback you are willing to accept. Because if you stop chasing and they return with relief only, and you accept it, you just taught them that your boundary is performative. You just taught them you can be rebought with attention. So stopping the chase is not the finish line. It is the entrance to the real test. The test is whether they can meet the standard your nervous system needs. And yes, this standard is exactly what makes avoidants respect you more, not less. Because the avoidant does not trust people who abandon themselves. They might enjoy the control, but deep down, they do not trust it. They do not respect the person who is always available to be harmed. They feel safer with someone who has a spine. They feel less trapped with someone who is clear. That sounds backwards, but it is how their system works. Clarity is a wall they can lean against. Chaos makes them run. So if you want the avoidant to come back, your best move is not emotional intensity. It is clean clarity. You stop chasing, and you stop negotiating your reality. You stop trying to prove the depth. You stop trying to be chosen by someone who only chooses you when it is convenient. And then something shifts. They start thinking about you at the exact moments they used to feel safe ignoring you. They start wondering why you did not react. They start checking whether you are still there. They start feeling the discomfort they kept outsourcing to you. And that discomfort is what can turn into movement. But only if you do not break your own frame. Most people ruin this moment. They get the text and they flood the connection. They say, "Finally." They overshare. They ask for reassurance. They ask for answers. They try to lock it down instantly. And the avoidant feels crowded and disappears again. So the real art is this. You let them come forward into the space you created, but you do not rush to fill it. You let them experience the cost of distance without punishing them. You let them earn the bridge with consistency. You do not audition. You observe. You do not chase. You invite. And you make the invitation conditional on behavior, not words. That is how you get an avoidant back in a way that lasts. Now let's get even more ruthless, because you came here for the truth. If you have been chasing an avoidant, you have probably been mistaking two things for progress: attention and accountability. Attention is when they text. Attention is when they flirt. Attention is when they watch your stories. Attention is when they call after midnight. Accountability is when they address the rupture, name what happened, and change behavior. Attention is cheap. Accountability is rare. Chasing makes you addicted to attention because attention feels like connection when you have been starved. Stopping the chase breaks that addiction. And that is why everything changes. Because once you stop chasing, you stop rewarding attention without accountability. You stop paying for love with anxiety. And that does two things. It brings them closer if they are capable, or it exposes them if they are not. Either way, you win. And I know you do not want to hear that second part, so let me say it in the only way that matters. If they are not capable, you will stop wasting months trying to get a person back who was never going to show up. You will stop bleeding your life into a maybe. You will stop building a future on potential. That is not healing talk. That is strategy. Because the most dangerous thing about avoidant dynamics is time loss. They can keep you emotionally occupied for years with just enough connection to keep you hoping. And hope, attached to inconsistency, is a trap. So, what does stopping the chase look like in the day-to-day, in a way that makes them feel it? First, you stop initiating more than they do. Not as a game, as a reset. If you are always the one reaching, you are doing relationship maintenance alone. Stop. Second, you stop sending emotional essays. If you cannot say it in 2 lines, it is not clarity, it is a plea. Third, you stop accepting vague. If they want to see you, it becomes a plan. If they want to talk, it becomes a time. If they are unsure, you do not fill the space with reassurance. You let uncertainty be theirs to hold. Fourth, you stop being available as a coping mechanism. You do not become their comfort while they keep you outside the relationship. This is the boundary that changes everything, because it forces them to choose between keeping you as a secret comfort or showing up with real intent. And if they choose comfort only, you have your answer. Now, I want to address the fear underneath your chasing, because it is the real reason you break your own boundary. The fear is not that you will lose them. The fear is that if you stop chasing, they will not come back. And then you will have to admit you were alone in the connection. That fear is real. And that is why stopping the chase feels like jumping off a cliff. But here is the twist. The cliff is the only place where truth exists. Because as long as you keep chasing, you will never know whether they would choose you without pressure. You will never know whether they miss you without you prompting it. You will never know whether they can come closer without you dragging them. And you deserve to know. Not for closure, for power, for the strategy of your own life. When you stop chasing, you stop doing the work that hides their limitations. You stop making the relationship look functional by over-functioning. And that is when everything changes. They either step up or they fade. And both outcomes protect you from the worst outcome, which is staying trapped in an endless almost. Now let's talk about what happens inside the avoidant when you stop chasing, because understanding this will stop you from panicking. At first, they feel relief. The pressure is gone. They tell themselves, you are fine. They tell themselves, you are busy. They tell themselves, the connection is stable. This is why the first days can look like nothing. Do not confuse that with failure. Then, they start noticing the absence. Not emotionally at first, behaviorally. They notice you are not reaching. They notice you are not reacting. They notice you are not available. That triggers a subtle anxiety, because avoidance is not freedom, it is management. And when you stop participating, their management system loses a key piece. Then, they start testing. A casual text, a meme, a small bid. If you respond like the old you, the test ends. They learned you are still there. If you respond with calm warmth and low investment, the test continues. Then, if they actually care, the emotional layer hits. They start remembering your energy. They start feeling the loss of your softness. They start feeling the echo of you. And this is where many avoidants do something confusing. They feel more, but they show less. Because emotion activates their fear. So they may go quiet right as they begin to miss you. Do not chase in that moment. That is the moment your old self would break. That is the moment your new self holds. Because the moment you chase, you relieve their fear, and you teach them that fear works. You teach them that if they withdraw, you come closer. And that is the exact loop that has been breaking you. So if you want them back, you stop feeding withdrawal with pursuit. You let withdrawal meet emptiness. Not emptiness as punishment, emptiness as consequence. That is what rewires the dynamic. And yes, it can lead to them coming back, but more importantly, it forces them to come back differently. They cannot come back to the same version of you. They have to meet the version of you that does not chase. That is the entire point. Now, here is the part that makes people uncomfortable, but it is the truth. If you stop chasing and they come back, do not reward them for coming back. Reward them for staying. Reward them for consistency. Reward them for repair. Reward them for action. Because the moment you celebrate their return, you reinforce the pattern that leaving and returning is the cycle. You want to reinforce the pattern that closeness is sustained. So you meet their return with calm. You do not explode with relief. You do not collapse into gratitude. You do not punish. You simply stay steady. Steady is the language that changes avoidant systems over time. Steady is the only thing that proves you are not trying to trap them, and you are not willing to be trapped either. So yes, when you stop chasing, everything changes. Not because you became colder, because you became accurate. You stopped giving relationship benefits to relationship avoidance. You stopped paying for crumbs with your nervous system. You stopped turning longing into labor. And the moment you stop making it easy for them to keep you at a distance, they either move closer or they reveal that distance is the only relationship they know how to offer. If you want the avoidant back, your best move is to stop being the person who makes leaving safe. Stop making your heart an always open door. Make it a place someone earns with clarity, consistency, and care. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.